Welcome everybody to one more episode of Mentes Progresivas, and today I have a special guest. I'm really honored to have you, Missy Palacios. Thank you for joining me. I really appreciate the time and energy you're gonna share with us, and obviously hear about your story. And I'm excited about it. Welcome.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I'm really excited to be here with you and to be here with everyone and just share the things that have helped me along the way that I feel would be so important for others to know about, and just little nuggets to hold on to as everyone starts building their foundation. I think is so supportive. Yeah.
I love that. I'm glad to hear that you mentioned about the foundation. But you've been your journey is very interesting because you've been a Marine. You went into the HR department. You went to project manager, and now you're into coaching and
Uh-huh.
doing so many things. And I think that your entrepreneurial journey, it's fascinating to me. And I want to dive a little bit into the foundation because obviously it's a pattern. You trying something, you enjoy it, then you get into the next,
Yeah.
you know, phase of your life, and you enjoy it and you move on. But there's a foundation. So what would that be for you? What is your foundation?
Yeah. That is something that with time I've been able to look at, because on the surface, like you mentioned, going from marine biology, so training mammals, to HR and tech, to being a project manager and now a coach, right? On the surface, it might not
Mm-hmm.
look like there's a thread.
Yeah.
And the thread the entire time has always been something that my mom shared with me. Like, she had no expectations of us. We were not type A personality kids. We were not like straight A students. We're not what you think of as entrepreneurs. Her only thing that she wanted from us was to be happy. And so you think
Mm,
that's easy. My mom just wants me to be happy. But then I had no
yeah.
direction. I didn't know where
Yeah.
I wanted to go,
Yeah.
And so I really was just following my curiosity. What did I really want to do in life that would really fuel me, make me feel happy, make me feel like I'm living on purpose, like in purpose, in service. I knew that early on my gift would be to support others, and really I thought, I'm interested in the water. I'm interested in, marine mammals, and just learning how can we protect the earth on this big level. And so I followed that curiosity. Uh,
Good.
and then in HR, it's life happens. Sometimes you have to pay the bills. And I started taking care of my grandma early on. And it still was like, can I be happy? Can I use the skills that I have to support my family, still be happy with what I do? And working in a tech startup, I was totally fulfilled and able, knowing that my core purpose was taking care of my grandma, taking care of my family. So it was easy to be happy. So holding on to that thread the entire
Yeah.
time, that's what has kind of like, in that meandered way, brought me to coaching. Because in HR, you're supporting people. I'm supporting
Yeah.
employees. I'm making sure they feel that they have a purpose in what they're doing, that they have a say in creating. And so I was supporting them in that way. And I knew, I could be a coach. I could do this instead of being in tech, instead of being in HR, really come fully into something in service to others. Yeah.
That's pretty amazing. And I want to tap into a little bit of a few things. There's a few key elements that for me I'm very interested in. I'm excited to hear more about it because
Well,
your foundation pretty much was ingrained on you from the get-go as
mhm.
an early age. And you mentioned the word happy
Yeah.
as an early age. And I can sense I can feel the way you mentioned is like, well, that sounds really cool. That sounds really exciting. Give me that. But then you're like, well, how am I going to achieve that? How am I going to attain it? Right? You're going into different phases of your life. You start discovering, am I really happy? You
Mm,
start questioning yourself. Am I really happy? Is really what I want to
yeah.
continue to do? If this is going to be able to help me to support my family. So once again, you mentioned family twice. And for me, that's really cool because I really feel that family, it's a strong support. And it seems for you, it's at your core.
Yes.
I want you to tap a little more into that, because for me, when I think about family, it's something that it can go both ways.
Mhm.
Even though we grew up like it's really, really, really strong, for some people it might not be that strong,
Mhm.
right? But for you, being at an early age, you've heard the word happy, and you were driven to that. There was nothing external. There was no attachment.
Mhm.
And to me, that's so beautiful, because there was no attachment. There was no goal. The goals is, and you might at that early stage, you might like, well, give me that. And you wasn't like, it was pushing you like my creativity,
Mhm.
my curiosity. Like you started getting curious about happiness. So I want you to tap a little more into that when it comes down to family, and how that was a motivation for you to get you going in the direction that you wanted to go and you took off.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so amazing how you picked up on that, like how really foundational family is at my core. I grew up
Yeah.
first gen American immigrant family,
Mm-hmm.
and the family was small. It was just me, my brother, my mom, and my grandma. Everyone else was in another country. And so seeing that struggle and knowing that my mom was never made it seem like it was a struggle. We always had what we needed, right? We always had a roof over our head. We always had food on the table. I mean, it was probably rice and tuna fish, but it was like really
Nice.
core of the priority in life. You have
Mhm.
family, then you have everything. And so that was the core. And it was okay to like acquire family, right? I didn't have
Mhm.
blood relatives with me in the States. It was just us three or four when you count my grandma. And so that meant that the bonds I made in my community where I grew up, they were really strong bonds. We were all in that similar struggle. We all kind of understood each
Yeah.
other, and we knew that there was power in even creating family, right? Because we
Mhm.
don't all, like you mentioned, have a strong family foundation. We might not have a lot of family members with us for one reason or another.
Mhm.
And so
Yeah.
having that, I knew no matter what went wrong in my life, I had someplace safe to go to. And so it was easy then, to be happy. Like, okay.
Mhm.
I mean, it's wasn't easy to figure out, but then I knew because I had that sense of security and safety, like nothing can ever be as bad as where I came from or the
Yeah.
sacrifice my mom or grandma made. And so as long as I can fulfill that one thing, that one wish that they had, that I
Yeah.
knew I was living my life the way they had hoped it would be. Yeah.
Yeah. That is pretty amazing, though. I'll be honest with you, because it's a strong foundation for, obviously for you, but for lots of us, our family. It's a strong foundation, and when you start tapping into your values, into really, really what you really believe, where everything is coming from, you start everything's coming from your childhood, the people you surround yourself,
Yeah.
as a kid, the people you grew up, and things like that. Now, the other thing that you mentioned along the way was your curiosity.
Hmm.
How big would you say curiosity is being part of your journey?
Hmm. It's definitely always been a consistent part of my journey. And my curiosity and being creative looked different, right? Depending on the role, I really always focused on how I felt and like what the
Mhm.
energy was. And thinking of, okay, there's bills to be paid, but am I going to actually enjoy the work I'm doing or the people I'm working with or the people I'm working for, like in serving them on
Mhm.
what the mission is? And then being curious about how I can lend my skills and my talents to further that
Mhm.
purpose, then I was able to have fun with it. I was able to play. I was able to enjoy the hard work because it was something that was fueling me. Because I knew early on I was able to tap into what is the bigger purpose for this organization, in my
Yeah.
role, all of that. And so then I got to be curious and I got to be creative and I was able to talk to other team members and like, how can we make this better? how can this system be better? And so, especially when I was in tech, people who love technology and want to play with things, I'm like, I'll figure it out. Let's play, right? What can we do to be more efficient, to be more supportive? So I never really thought of it as like a primary thing, but it really
Mhm.
was something that was with me the entire time. It really
Yeah.
was. To be curious and just come with that creativity, that childlike curiosity of how can we create something.
Yes, definitely. And I really think creativity for me, it's curiosity is one of my joys. Like when I want to spark, I learn how to spark my creativity by just being curious. And I'm always curious. And I'm curious and to hear more about your story, not just because of all the things that you've been doing, but how you've been connecting the dots. For me, it's so fascinating that all the dots you've been connecting and how you were able to connect the dots along the journey. You mentioned, am I really gonna be happy? You going back again to what you learned at the early stages. It seems like that obviously that is strong. However, as you grow, you want to be your own hero, creative, right? So how did you start tapping into that? How you started to asking yourself, that is this really gonna make me feel happy? Is this really gonna fulfill me in a way?
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for that question. Um, it's something that was trial and error, like along the way, especially my 20s. Like being happy was like a mental thing. Like if I check
Yeah.
these boxes, then I'm happy.
Mhm.
Pay the bills, I'm happy. If I can buy the new clothes, I'm happy. If I made it on time, I'm happy. If I looked a certain way, I'm happy. But it wasn't like a very core happiness, right? After a while, like even doing marine biology, which I thought I would love to do. And I even was training to be a trainer for
Yeah.
mammals, something I thought I would love and be so happy and joyful doing. I learned I had to check into my body. And I learned that because a gift that came out of me caring for my grandmother, I needed to carve out time for myself, right? I would get so lost in the stress and the overwhelm, making sure as a primary caregiver, she had dementia, I took care of her first. And then I
Mm.
realized I had to take care of myself first, right? And so it wasn't enough just to pay the bills anymore to take care of her. I really had to look at what does it mean to be happy. And so I started really learning more about like that spiritual growth aspect, learning more about what are my emotions telling me? If
Yeah.
I'm feeling drained, I'm no longer happy. This is no longer serving me. Um, is it something I can shift my energy? Is it like a temporary drain? Or is
Yeah.
it not me like living with my purpose? And
Mhm.
so it is a moment by moment practice of really checking into my body. What do I feel like? Do I feel connected? And is there, even to go beyond happy, like, is there joy in what I'm doing?
Yeah.
And that's what I started then moving beyond. Like, happiness and joy are just two different things. And so that joy is that like deep, deep content, like satisfied. I could be tired, but I can still smile at the thought of all the work I did because I got to enjoy myself. I got to play. And so it really was doing the work. What does it mean to be happy? And what can I do to bring that into my life, no matter what's happening around me? Right.
Yeah.
And so that's what I really had to dive into. And it was because I wanted to care for my grandmother in a really deep way. And so I
Yeah.
had to figure that out. And so I did the work for that.
That's pretty awesome, though. I really completely relate to you. It's clear to me the services. It's at your core. The fact that in regard if it's family, you care for others. The stuff that you're doing, there's several things that you're doing. Even you're a true leader. A leader is that person that's willing to sacrifice himself for the well-being of others,
Mhm.
right? At the same time, you're like, hold on one second. If I want to take care of you, I still got to take care of myself.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I love the distinction that you made about happiness and joy.
Mhm.
And I feel that those are intertwined, those are enhance each other.
Yeah.
But nowadays we focus like, want to be happy, want to be happy, want to be happy. And why am I not happy? But
Yeah.
when you start tapping into joy, it's a completely different game changer for me too. I
Yeah.
remember asking myself too, like, why am I not happy? Back in 2018, why am I not happy? I'm doing what I love. I'm enjoying what is it? And I couldn't figure that out. And
Mm.
I'm like, I gotta go way deeper than I ever have been able to. So I start acquiring different tools, different resources that has helped me go into that particular path. You obviously are very aware of your body. And for you, it seems like your intuition is in tune. And to me, that's really strong. How much percent, I wouldn't say how much percent, but you obviously mentioned the fact that you go inside your body.
Mhm.
And oftentimes I tell people too, the people that I work with, because they come to me, as a personal trainer, like, oh, I hurt my back. And before I used to go over just the external, but sometimes I just ask these questions. I'm like, oh, I'm sorry to hear that. However, how's life?
Mhm.
And they're like, wow, work is super chaotic, kids, family, blah blah. And I'm like, yeah, it's okay. Well, let's try to take it easy on that part, and let's get you decompress with certain exercises. But then me personally start tapping into that, because not many people knows where they hold the stress.
Yeah.
You are very aware of that, because the minute you feel stress in your body, you're like, hold on one second,
Mhm.
this doesn't feel right. I
Yeah.
gotta go in a different direction. I'm the same way. I don't function with stress. The minute I feel stressed, like, hold on one second, something doesn't feel right.
Mhm.
Like, what is it? So I go and start asking myself, start looking for the external, for any particular excuse. Could it be the day? Could it be no? That's external. What is it inside of me?
Mhm.
What are something that's helping you or has helped you go more deeper, to be
Yeah.
more in tune with your body? Because I feel that that's going to help people. That particular tool can help so many people. And if more people, you there watching, I really encourage you to ask yourself where you hold the stress in your body. You are going to find so many answers about yourself like you have no idea. So please, Missy,
Yeah.
share with us a few things, because this is going to be awesome.
Yeah. Well, it's amazing that you two are able to feel it in your body. You're able to like know that there's something off. There's something out of alignment. I need to shift
Mhm.
because I can recognize it. And there are so many people who don't recognize it.
Yeah.
There's so many people who, whether they might just be very logical, and so they're always in their head, and so they
Yeah.
don't know how to drop into their body.
Mhm.
And so one thing that really started me on this journey that had nothing to do with feeling my body was just being aware of my thoughts. There is this book called Untethered Soul by Michael Singer,
Yeah, yeah.
right? And
Amazing.
it's amazing because it was the first time someone articulated, you're not your thoughts. And
Yeah.
these incessant things in my mind, I was like, wow, I have control over what my thought is. What more do I have control over? Right. And so it was just that little crack in the awareness that I was able to really like kind of dive into it. Like there was I think he mentioned in the book about like just notice even when you're in a shower where
Yeah.
nothing should be
Yeah.
bothering you, right?
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, let's see how many voices are coming up. What are all these thoughts? And being aware of it. And then when I was able to put together the awareness is me,
Mhm.
and so it built that separation, I was able to say, what else can I be aware of?
Mhm.
What else can I feel?
Yeah.
And so much we easily can make excuses, like especially now, so many people are on the computer. So you probably just
Yeah.
feel a whole lot of stress here. And
Yeah.
it's easy to say, well, I'm hunched. I'm like this, right? Of
Yeah.
course. But really, is it because you're hunched, or were you stressed? And that made you feel like this, right? And
Yeah.
so it's having that awareness and taking the moment, any moment that you need to just check in and say, what am I
Yeah.
feeling in my body? Or what are my thoughts? If I can't feel anything, then what thought am I having right now?
Yeah.
Just kind of give me that clue. But that's what started for me, was the untethered soul. Cause I was like, whoa, I've
Yeah.
never realized that before. And
Yeah.
that's what kind of like started that journey for me.
That is so interesting. And thank you so much for sharing that particular book, because that book helped me to understand so many things about myself. But more
Wow.
than anything, helped me to write so many spoken word poetry. And
Mm,
when I look back, a lot of that's the way I journal. So when I look back on my poetry that I wrote, I'm like, wow, I was like I really let it go. Like I really just wrote it and no filters at all. And I keep sharing it because for me it's powerful. But that particular book helped me to understand how to spark my creativity.
mm,
You mentioned the shower. When you're in the shower, pay attention. I started paying attention, and my mind, as soon as I wake up, my mind is racing like crazy. When I'm in the shower, so many ideas start connecting.
yeah.
This particular podcast, I was able to connect or have the idea, like the particular idea, like, okay, I had to do it. Like, this is
Yeah.
the idea. How, like, so many things happen. So it's incredible how books can spark that curiosity. But I really think that before you tap into curiosity, you really had to. I want to take one step back,
Mhm.
because before you tap into curiosity, you had to be open minded to new ideas and experiences.
Yeah.
And I want to touch that with you,
Mhm.
because you are a great example of being curious, but you are really open to new ideas and new experiences. I mean, look at your journey. It's like you open to new experience, new idea. You try it and you pivot, or you
Mhm.
go back into, this doesn't feel right. Once again, you ask yourself, this doesn't feel right, gotta go in a different direction. But you continue the path of service.
Yes.
And I love that whole entire circle, because it's a circle. If you think about it, you open yourself to new ideas and experiences, you tap into curiosity, and you connect it to service.
Yeah.
And it's all over again. And I can see the pattern. That's what I say. I'm like, this is beautiful. So I want you to tap into how you're able to continue to stay open to new experiences and ideas, regardless of the journey, regardless of what stage of your life you are.
Mm, I love this question. That's such a rich question, because it's true. Being open, I mean, again, and it could be down to that foundation of my mom saying, just be happy. So I didn't have to be attached to anything, right? There was this sense of freedom. I don't have to, have a 5-year plan and graduate from college and do all these things and get straight A's in order to have a good life, right? And so that's the freedom that I was given because of that. And so I was able to be open and unattached. And I was able to experience my community growing up and seeing all our different shades and styles and cultures. I was able to be open and be like, wow, this is so cool, right? And bring that with me when I'm engaging with people, of just being open. What would life be like if I did this one thing,
Yeah.
right? And something that is even coming to me now, of being open even to your fear, because that's something, for my whole life, the one thing I was scared of outside of flying was public speaking. I did not want to
Mm,
speak to anyone in public. I took an F in a class because I had to present a report And I said, nope, didn't know that was part of the deal. And she said, well, if you don't do it, you're going to fail. I said, then I'm going to fail. And I was like, I can't do this. And there was just, it's interesting because I let fear on that level control what I would do.
Yeah.
But I would always say, I won't let fear, take me
Yeah.
away from things I want to do, right? Just to be, I'm not going to let something dictate my life. I didn't realize those little things that was dictating my life.
Mhm.
And the one thing that came after doing marine biology, another opportunity came to work in a zoo setting to be an interpreter. And so those are those people in the zoo that are on the microphones talking to like hundreds of people in front of like a
Yeah.
polar bear that's doing a training session. And I was like, wow, this is so interesting. I would love to do this. And it says,
Mhm.
you have to be good at public speaking. And I was like, whoa, that's the fear, right? That's the one thing I never want to touch on, but I had to be open to it. Am I going to let this thing keep me from this opportunity that seems like it'd be so cool to really connect with people and just get a different skill set? And so I had to challenge that. So it's being open to possibilities and opportunities that resonate, but also that scare you. It's just
Mm.
being open to even what scares you because it's telling you something for sure.
Yeah. I love that. And I really think that you really are connected with yourself in ways that you never imagined probably, but at the same time you are not scared of trying new things. And you, even though you notice that, hold on one second, when I say one thing but I'm
Yeah.
doing the opposite, like what
Yeah.
is going on, you continue to go back to yourself and ask yourself, why am I doing this? Like, why do I really, am I really doing this? And I really think that that is crucial if you use one to continue to go in that path. Because for you, obviously, curiosity can get you sometimes. It gets me into trouble a lot of times because of curiosity. Sometimes I'm like, yeah, I got to get out of here. This is not, yeah, I'm in here already. What am I going to do?
Yeah.
And it just happens. It just happens to happen. And for me, it's like, yeah, this is nothing I can do. I guess I just had to stick to it. I guess I just got to go through it.
Yeah.
And that's another thing that I want to touch, because it doesn't matter for you, even though it scares you, you still go through. It doesn't matter if it's painful, you still go through. You find a way to always to find the skills that you needed
Mhm.
to prepare you, or at least that are gonna help you go through the journey. It's not jumping,
Yeah.
it's go through. And I always tell people, I'm like, don't try to jump over the pain. You gotta go through. You gotta feel. How does it feel? Once you start noticing the motion or the feeling, tap into it, because the next time you're gonna feel it, you're like, yeah, this doesn't feel right. I gotta go in a different direction, you know? So I want you to talk a little bit about that, because I really think that you, like I said, you really, I don't want you to go on the surface. I want you to go deep though. Yeah, I want you to go deep, because yeah, like the surface is cool, but that's what everybody does. They just go on the surface. But you learn how to, in a way, it's enjoyment though.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, gosh, you know what? To go deep, it really is a commitment. Like we have to really commit. What is it that we want and show up all the time?
Mhm.
And so for me, being open and curious and wanting to be happy, that meant I had to drop into my body. What does that feel like? That difference we were talking about between happiness and joy. And that's moment by moment, like taking every moment, and don't give up on yourself. Don't give up on, I'm too tired. I'm overwhelmed. Yes, I honor that. There's a lot of things happening, and still go through it. Still go through it, because our bodies are telling us something, right? The thoughts are
Mhm.
telling us something. And
Yeah.
that's the thing. The fear was telling me something. this thing that was happening little by little throughout my life that I kept trying to push away and avoid. I knew I had to go through it. It's the only way, right? And it's cliche. People say that it's the only way to go through it. And so that meant being on microphone. It meant having to breathe. It meant I might have stuttered on a mic. It meant I might not have been what my ideal 100% was, and I had to be okay with it. Holding on to the fact that I was still going towards the dream and the goal that I had, right? And so that's that commitment I had to myself. What am I doing? Why am I doing it? If this is the only way through, then, I'm going to go through it, because there's this other piece of, and maybe that's another foundational piece that people forget about, is having this trust, not just in the process, but the trust that there is something else guiding me through.
Yeah.
And we
Higher
can
power.
show up, that higher power, we call it God or the universe or whoever we want to call it. We show up, we do the work, and then we kind of have to let go and kind of let them bring us there, right?
Yeah.
Like if we end up and we're like, how did we get here? How did I get here? How did I get here talking with you? I had to go through all those things.
Yeah, it's true.
Right? I had to go through all those things. And so it's that commitment every day. It's going to look ugly. There are going to be days when it looks ugly. There's going to be days when you're like, why am I even doing this? Because also going through certain things, I was doing it alone. There wasn't another 20-something taking care of her grandma with dementia. There wasn't another 30-something that went back to school around me. Everyone was starting their families. I'm here in a whole different kind of life and a different lane at a different pace.
Yeah.
Where everyone figured out what their purpose was or thought they did. I was still like marine biology, HR tech, and it was easy for those negative thoughts to get in my mind of, what are you doing? Why are you switching around? Where to you and I now, it's like, oh, I can see this pattern, but in this very intentional way. I thought, well, this must be bad, because 7 years here or 7 years there, but I'm not like, they're so different in the fields. And so it's easy to get taken down, even by myself. What are you doing, Missy? Like, figure it out already. How old are you? Right? Those thoughts can get in my head. And so it's in those moments where it's like, drop down into my body, focus on my breath, and really stay committed to what the goal and a dream is, and show up all the time.
I really love everything you just said, and you spoke about it, and for many reasons. At the same time, I love the fact that you still bringing up that it hasn't been perfect. That there's been times when you question yourself.
All the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. All the time.
So many people see us and it's like, oh, the life is beautiful for Omar, for Missy. Yeah, but if you only knew behind the scenes, like all the things, thought process that you got to work on. And for me, I'm grateful for the journey, that everything I've been through. It's been beautiful. It's been amazing, but I want more. And people ask me, it's like, but what's more, Omar? I'm like, that's a great question. And whatever it is, I want more. I just want to really explore and experience as much as I can. Because I only get this life. I don't get another one. I have no idea, because we don't know. But at this moment, I'm trying to figure out. And I think that for you has been key, trying to figure out, but you still question it, but you still go through it. And you, it's like, you push forward, you pull yourself back, and then you move forward again. And I love that particular pattern that I see with your journey. Now, going through that whole entire journey, here you are. Continue to do the same thing just like you started as a kid. However, now you have obviously more experience. You have way more skills.
Mm-hmm.
You have lots of wisdom, and now you in this particular journey on serving others by doing coaching. How much of the difference, if you can go back and look at your journey, how much of the difference, I wouldn't say difference, how much of the impact that particular journey of yours, looking back, compared to what you are right now, are you taking onto the journey so you can continue to serve and support others?
Mm. I mean, all of it, all of it, because
Yeah.
I knew at an early age. I don't know if you remember when you were kids, they're like, what do you want to be when you grow up? What do you want to do? And I was like, I don't
Yeah,
know. Right?
I
I don't
ask
know.
myself all the time. Yeah.
Yeah. And I just thought I at least should just learn as much as I can so I
Mm-hmm.
can help people as much as I can. And that was like that thread. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so even though you said, okay, throughout all this, I have more skills, right? We have more experience.
Yeah.
The other piece is that I'm more intentional now too, because that thing that you get with
Yeah.
age, right? As you kind of live
Yeah.
through it, reflect, now I can be more intentional. So I'm bringing
Mm-hmm.
everything with me because it's why I am who I am. That
Yeah.
all shaped me. There's no way to drop all of that.
Mm-hmm.
But it's learning from it and being intentional in this next step, right? Like with
Yeah.
coaching. Who do I want to serve? Why do I want to serve them? Um, and every day, like you mentioned, like we move forward, we pull back, we move forward, we pull back. And that's how it is. We'll create, we're going to plateau because we just got to marinate in it. See, like, does this really make sense before we
Yeah.
go up again? Then we
Mm-hmm.
plateau. It doesn't mean we're not doing anything. It means we're really reflecting and trying to
Yeah.
learn, right? In those incremental.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm.
Every time we continue to move forward, now we're being intentional, right? I
Yeah.
can learn from my mistakes in the past, knowing about my body and saying to myself, did I really have the right intention? Was I really connected to that? Did I really give myself fully to this
Mm-hmm.
project or this job or this career or this relationship
Yeah.
and really be intentional with it? And so that's how I'm moving forward with coaching and supporting people in that way of holding that space now because I know what it's like to be overwhelmed and I know what
Yeah.
it's like to feel that stress. I I know what it's like to have the full-time job, to take care of the family, to still, have other duties on the side. And how do you manage it all? We all only have 24 hours.
Yeah.
And so it's creating that space because sometimes people don't know that they're not their thoughts or that they can control their thoughts or that
Mm-hmm.
they can listen to their body because their body's telling them something.
Yeah.
And so what a gift to be able to have that. Like when you mentioned how that book helped you. And you're like, oh my
Yeah.
gosh, now I'm really able to shift. And it's just
Yeah.
that little bit. And you're probably like, where was this book all these years ago? Like, I needed this book,
Yeah. It's true. It is
right?
true.
But it came at the right time. And that's
Yeah.
that part we have to eventually let go to that greater power. It's going to
Yeah.
show up when we're ready to hear it
Mm-hmm.
and to receive it. It's
Yeah.
like everything together. So I bring everything with me, especially that groundedness of how can we learn from ourselves and how can our own body be our safe place, right? No matter
Yeah.
what's happening around us, how can I feel safe and secure and loved
Mm-hmm.
with it?
Absolutely. I
Yeah.
really, I love everything you just said. It's so magical and fascinating to hear other people read some of the things I read because for me they were very powerful, and those are the books that really helped me to uncover and tap into a different level of self awareness.
Yeah.
And it wasn't pretty, I'll be honest with you, because it brought up more questions. Because
Yeah.
now I start bringing more questions. And another book that helped me on that particular journey, that helped me go even further deeper, is the book can't remember the name of the author. I will put him on the comments, but the book is the 40 40 love languages of,
Okay.
yeah, I think that's the name of the book. I cannot recall the name of the book, but it's something like 40 love languages or something like that. That book, it tap into, it's just mind blowing because I was really, really dedicated to get to know myself and
Mm.
why I'm thinking the way I think and where is this coming from? Do I want it to continue thinking that way, or can I pivot? Or can I do something? Because now I'm no longer that. I have more experience.
Mm-hmm.
I have several skills, and just make it part of me instead of me going back there with shame, guilty. Sometimes just speaking myself in a way that it shouldn't. I never speak myself that way. That's one thing I recognize. I just my mind never gone that way. I'm always curious, like why? Like it doesn't matter, but why? Why am I thinking this instead of me telling like you're in X, Y, and Z? That I don't recall talking to me that way.
Mm.
However, there's a person that helped me to understand that I was more intuitive than I ever thought. She's like, Omar, you are not, you're in a different phase of your life. Instead of you asking yourself, like, why are you speaking yourself that way? Now, I need you to tell me when others make you feel those words. And I was
Yeah.
like, oh, I can tell you that. In that moment, I was able to tap into my childhood life. I'm like, oh, my teacher, X, Y, and Z. I was able for me, but the word she uses feel. And
Mm.
that helped me to, oh, it's all about how I feel. And ever since, I just carry on and I
Yeah.
just continue to move on. You are in this particular stage of your life where you support caregivers,
Uh-huh.
and it's something that you find it very fulfilled.
Yeah.
You completely understand, and people that are caregivers, I want you to listen to this. This is going to be powerful. You obviously work with them. For
Mm.
you, what is one of the most challenging things that they bring in, but there's a pattern on a caregiver that lots of people are going through it. They don't realize they're going through it until they wade deep into the hole in a way, but
Yeah.
they come into you and you're like, yeah, let's go through this journey together.
Yeah. Yeah. The one major thing for caregivers, and it's not going to seem wrong because a caregiver is coming from love. I want to love and take care of this person. How can that be a bad thing? Right. And it's like an easy question, easy yes of like, yeah, of course I can feel it. I have the energy space for it. I'm patient for it. I'll take care of this person, this loved one, but they do it all the time. And so recognizing that they're
Mm,
not just doing it in the role of a formal caregiver either. Where else are they being a caregiver? At work, with their spouse, with everyone else in the community, and
yeah.
they're not taking care of themselves,
Mhm.
right? And that's where that overwhelm and that stress comes because it's
Mm,
like what we touched on before. If you're not taking care of yourself, you cannot take care of the other person,
yeah, yeah,
right? That's why they warn us on the plane, put your mask on first and then help
yeah,
person, even if it's
mhm,
a little child. And you're like,
yeah,
well, could I not save this child? You
yeah,
still have to put your mask on first.
mhm,
And that's the pattern. That's the thing that caregivers don't realize because they're coming from a place of love. So how can that be wrong? Right. And it's like you'll make it work. I will run ragged. I will collect all the things to make sure my grandma or my child has all the things and we can go outside. I'm gonna book everything minute to minute without so I can make sure everyone has the opportunity to do everything that they need and want while
mhm,
also taking care of all the laundry or dinner or work. and just we're always giving, 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 giving. But it's not like an endless well of energy. It's endless for love. There's an endless well of love, but the energy is not endless. We need to take the time to kind of just get that time for ourselves.
Yeah.
Breathe it, even if it's only a moment. Even if you don't have 2 hours to go meditate, right? And just sit in
Yeah.
silence, because life is going to happen. But that's the big thing. It's like you take a moment. We always have a moment.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
so finding
No,
that for it. Yeah.
that's amazing, though. And I'm glad that you touched the fact that even just take a little moment just to recover yourself. And I love the analogy you use when it comes down to the airplane, because I think it's very powerful. We always want to take care of others. But before you do that, you got to take care of yourself. And I learned that going through my psychology classes with my teacher. He emphasized, it's like, Omar, the greatest psychologists, greatest therapists, and the people that works with people mentally, if their well-being is not 100%,
Yeah.
they 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 refrain from working with others because they understand they're not gonna give their 100% because they won't be able to because they have so much in their head. It's not necessarily that they can't or they don't want to. So I want you to take that with you and do whatever you need to do. He didn't tell me like this is what you need to do. Nothing. Because he learned from the get-go with me. He didn't have to tell me. All he had to do, share whatever he needed me to hear. And I'm always like, well, that's interesting. Let me see if I can play with me. That's part of me. That's something you're sharing so much with this. This is interesting. Let me tap into that. Right. So when he shared that, I'm like, yeah. And now that I've been doing this journey, I'm applying it, and it has completely changed. Like my whole entire mindset, the way I approach business, the way I approach the things that I'm doing now. I'm obviously very curious and very creative. So I'm always on the next thing, then to the next thing, to the next thing. And I have learned that, hold on, let me take care of one thing at a time. Let me take care of this. And then I move on to the next one. That I write it down because for me it's important to write it down, right?
Yeah.
And I feel that not many people understand that. And people get just into this rabbit hole of we had to give, 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 we had to give. And by the end of the day, they're just like, I'm exhausted. Like, this is exhausted.
Yeah. Yeah. And then it's so easy to just get caught up in it.
Yeah.
And then you're disconnected, right? That happened to me. I was disconnected and I'm just going through the motions. I get up, the alarm goes off, make the breakfast, get my grandma ready, bring her to daycare, do all these things, run to the office, like all these things. And then you're no longer living your life
Yeah.
because you're not consciously there.
Mm-hmm.
You're total survival mode, right? It can come to a point where you're just survival mode and you're like, I'm just trying to keep going, right?
Yeah.
And I'm just sheer will. And
Mm.
that is not sustainable. Like
Yeah.
no matter what we're doing. But I love that you mentioned like how you write things down, right?
Yeah.
There's that journaling space. Even having that, like there is a science to bring your thoughts or your feelings and writing it down on paper, like the mechanics that you're now
Yeah.
connecting this physical with this like very mechanical, like actual tactile piece. That
Yeah.
it's a reason why so many people put that as a task through therapy, through coaching, like journaling. You learn so
Yeah.
much yourself and you've released so much
Yeah.
to just kind of like just release some of that pressure and
Absolutely.
create that distance, right? So the overwhelm can kind of just like reduce a little bit more.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's just so powerful.
I think it's beautiful you mentioned the fact that the journaling, how much impact. Like for me, it has made huge impact. And people, obviously, when I write spoken word poetry, that's the way I journal. And
Mhm.
sometimes it just comes, and sometimes it's just not there.
Yeah.
And for me, it has to flow. I don't force it. it's just, I just don't force it. I learn not to force it, because the minute I force it, it got me into trouble. It got me into difficult situations. I'll be honest with you. That's what I said. Like, for me,
Yeah.
I'm like, you learn, I have learned my process,
Mhm.
and you had your process very lined up.
Mhm.
And to me, it's beautiful to see it. How did you start discovering your process? Because many people, or I feel that people, mm, maybe it might not, I'm not quite sure if I can call it process, but for me, it's process. You had to know your process. Like, what are the things
Mhm.
that can help you move forward without feeling drained, right? But if you can speak about it a little bit more, I would love
Yeah.
to hear that.
Yeah. I mean, it really was like when I look back, I just love that question of like, what's, because I never thought of it as a process. It's like I'm iterating. I'm taking things that I resonate with and I'm trying it again, being open, experimenting. Um, a teacher of mine says, don't wear a shoe that pinches, right? You just try it
Mm,
on. If it doesn't fit, put it away, right? You can move on to
yeah.
something else. And it really was, I mean, it was so pivotal caring for my grandmother because she had dementia. So she lost her language. Not only did she
Mm,
lose her second language of English, she started to lose her first language of Spanish. So how do you
mm,
communicate with someone who has no language, right?
yeah.
And so I had to completely shift how I interact with someone.
Mm,
And that's what was pivotal for me. So I'm learning, okay, I'm not my thoughts. I'm learning how to drop into what I'm feeling.
yeah.
That meant I had to be really clear when I'm interacting with her because she could sense the energy,
Yeah.
right? She had,
Yeah.
with dementia, had just experienced life in a different way. And that's
Yeah.
the one thing that we don't realize, caregivers don't realize, that people we're caring for, whether they're littles or maybe they're our parents going through some cognitive needs, they're experiencing the world in a different way than we are.
Yeah.
So being open to that emotion. And so I had to bring that on. I had to be aware of that,
Mhm.
at that. But then I was able to see, I could feel my energy and I could feel if someone's coming out of harsh energy too, right?
Yeah.
And I can be open and not blame them for it. But
Mm,
that's what guides my process of how I relate to people. That's how I stay open and hold the space and there's no judgment. That's
yeah.
this other book, um, The Four Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz. Have you heard
Yeah.
of this one? Did you read
Of
this one? Of
course. Of course.
course.
Of course.
How do you relate to yourself and others in the world?
Yeah.
And it's
Hmm.
like, don't take anything personal.
Nothing
Like,
personal. Yeah.
be impeccable with your word, have integrity in what you're doing.
Yeah.
And so on. And I thought, okay, I'm going to not take offense from anyone else. Knowing
Yeah.
the energy and knowing that things could be coming up and that's why we're feeling a certain way and not taking
Yeah.
it personal, having that
Hmm.
compassion towards the other person. And then
Yeah.
realizing in doing that, like it really is that moment. It sounds easy, but it's so hard to do moment by moment practice. It's because I
Yeah.
had my grandma to commit to, right? I
Hmm.
needed to show up in a different way for her.
Yeah.
And I realized my overwhelm, the anxiety, that stress,
Hmm.
it just shifted. It was still there. It's not
Yeah.
like it
Of
goes
course.
away. It's just not controlling me anymore
Hmm.
because I made more space between it?
Yeah.
So I could be aware of it. My, there's that stress. I could feel it. I could feel it in my back or my neck
Hmm.
or maybe even my head getting a headache. But I know how I can shift my energy then because I know it's all energy.
Yeah.
So that's how I got to that process. And so it's like that gift of being open and caring for someone. So there's so many gifts as a caregiver that we can
Yeah.
get to learn about ourselves so we can take care of these people. But it is taking care of yourself first. That's
Yeah. I love that though. I think it's amazing the fact that you have read that book too, because this is some of the first books that I read when it came down to personal journey or personal growth, of personal development. And for me, it was very powerful. And I want to tap a little more deeper into what you just said about not take it personal, because there's
Yeah.
something that I often tell people, like, learn to not take things personal by separating the behavior from the person. The
Mhm.
behavior, it's not the person.
Exactly. Exactly.
And sometimes people's like, can you give me a example of it? I'm like, give example, like my daughter over the weekend. I wasn't very fond of certain things. And I'll let her know. I'm like, Mariana, I just want you to know, I love you. I'm just not a big fan of your behavior.
Mm,
Can't you? And
yeah.
she just looked at me, she's like, I love you too. And she gave me a hug, and we hugged, and that's it. I move on. She's aware that the behavior.
Mhm.
And I say, yes, just become more aware of that behavior. Then we're fine. She's
Yep.
like, okay. And then she went. Okay. And for me, it's been fascinating to use it now that I have my daughter. I'm using it constantly and oftentimes, and especially on the coaching or mentorship that I'm doing. And so is you. It seems like you continually applying it, and I think those are the things that for me are powerful. That you not just coming in here and telling me all these beautiful things, but you're like, no, I apply those things within myself. Therefore, I want you to start applying them, but at the same time, come aware of it because I'm not there all the time.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
This has
And
been
that's
amazing. Yeah,
daughter, right? She's learning from you, becoming aware of it. When you're not there, she's not going to keep that, right? She's going to keep,
yeah,
okay, my behavior, it's not me. Now she's learning that separation too,
yeah,
right? That's a
yeah,
powerful, even practicing it, not just for yourself, but with others in your life. Yeah, that's great.
yeah, absolutely.
Cool.
Missy, this has been a fascinating topic and chat. Me personally, I love digging deep into certain things, certain behaviors, certain partners that I see, and I just want to say congratulations on everything you've been doing. You have been doing an incredible job. Obviously, it shows your journey, and now I get to know and have a better understanding on why you're doing a lot of the things you're doing, and why you're working with the people that you're working at this particular moment. I think it's
Yeah.
very powerful. And, from the bottom of my heart, I just want to let you know that you're doing an amazing job. I just want to thank you for the time and energy you share with us. But before we close this particular podcast, I want to ask you if there's anything you want to share that I haven't been giving you the opportunity to talk. This is the moment that you can share
Oh,
whatever
wow.
is in your mind.
Omar, I mean, just gratitude for you for being so generous with your time, for sharing your gift of wanting to support people, because you're living in service too, right? Not
Yeah.
just as a coach, but with this podcast, you're living in service as a father. So just thank you so much for your generous time and space and heart. So I just really appreciate, a lot of gratitude for you. Um, and you left me with so much time to be able to share that I just, want to share, just take it moment by moment, right? And keep showing up for yourself and just be open. That those are the key things to hold on to, and everything will be all right. Everything will be all right
Yeah.
if you can connect with yourself in a deep way. Yeah.
Yeah. I love it. Thank you so much, Missy. It's been amazing.
Omar.
And I really want to extend an invitation in the future because I want to touch so many things. And you are a great example of when I speak about like, let's go deep. I love to going deep, but not just in the surface. As well as I'm like, the surface is great. I want to go deep. And this has been amazing. This has been fascinating. I just want to thank you. I'm very grateful for your time, your energy you shared with me. And I'll be honest with you, I'll see you next time. I'm very
Yeah.
excited for the next chat, but at the moment, we have to say goodbye. Thank you so much for watching. And this is
Thank
it. Mentes Progresivas. We're back. We're back #2. So I'm excited for the journey ahead of us. Thank you, Missy.
Thank you, Omar.